Meet Adele, a contender for the title of Kitchen Nightmare's most miserable restaurant owner. Her journey features not only herself, but also her daughter Cheryl and her husband, whom she forced out of retirement. They run a restaurant with a weird name, weird food, and worst of all, very weird and out-of-place restaurant decor.
Wow, Florida mango.
The problem is, this isn't Florida, this is in the middle of New Jersey. Cruel to her staff, inconsiderate to her husband, and with lousy taste in food, this owner was one of Ramsay's most frustrating challenges. The situation deteriorated to such an extent that the only way to cleanse what was once a dining establishment was through the purifying flames of a massive bonfire.
The tropics are going.
Still, this owner repeatedly refused Ramsay's renovations like no one else on the show.
I hate it. Hate.
How was Ramsay able to help Madame Hate? What happened to Flamangos after the show, along with its negative owner? Let's find out. At the start of this tropical nightmare, we travel to Whitehouse Station, New Jersey, a peaceful town surrounded by farms. That's the home of Bill and Adele, an elderly married couple who have decades of experience as restaurant owners. After the success of their last restaurant, the couple were left with $1 million to retire and age peacefully ever after. After 3 days of retirement, Adele felt bored as hell, so she dragged her husband back into the business in 2006. This time, they opened their first fine dining restaurant alongside their daughter, Cheryl, giving birth to Flamingos. Flamangos? It looks like something you would find more on a Florida turnpike than you would in rural New Jersey. Not only is that weird enough, but Adele's attitude is sinking the restaurant.
Shut your mouth already!
For an old lady, there's a lot of hate in her soul. Meanwhile, Bill manages the restaurant's maintenance and goes the extra mile by personally attending to the meat tableside, a physically demanding task that one might consider quite challenging for a retired man in his 70s. As for the food, the owners claim it's delicious, but their head chef Brian points out that it could be better and that he's not allowed to change the menu. And that's how the couple spent their retirement money, on a failed business that continues to generate losses. Considering their age, they can't afford to start from zero. That's when our favorite problem solver enters the scene. Before visiting Flamangos, Ramsay stops by the family's house, where Bill tells him he came out of retirement only to end up broke. After that, Gordon meets Cheryl, who, at 42, still lives at home with her parents. This astonishes Gordon that she still lives at home, because he was also 42 years old at that point. On the way to the restaurant, Gordon pronounces Flamingos, so Cheryl explains that it's called Flamangos. You know, flamingos and mangoes combined. There's nothing more tropical than that.
Wow, Florida mango.
Okay, time to rebrand the business. All kidding aside, Ramsay finds the tropical theme in New Jersey a bit odd. Plus, the decor is a bit too overwhelming. At lunchtime, Ramsay gets his first dish, ahi tuna, which almost gives him a heart attack because of how spicy it is. Next, he receives the tiki platter. It only took him one bite to spit it out. Meanwhile, Bill dons his black chef's coat in the kitchen to prepare a tsunami of filet mignon. The funny thing is that part of the dish involves watching Bill prepare it right next to your table. Gordon says it is one of the toughest pieces of filet he has ever had. Disappointed with the weird menu at Flamangos, Ramsay talks to Chef Brian, who confesses that he wouldn't eat anything served at the restaurant. Later, Gordon oversees dinner service, and since he is in town, the restaurant fills up like never before. However, that means more stress for Brian, as the menu is excessively large. As a result, the customers lose patience, but Adele just wishes they'd shut up. After 45 minutes of waiting, the customers get their first orders, only to immediately send them back to the kitchen because of how lousy the food was. Frustrated by these reactions, Brian takes a break from the kitchen. Still, he clarifies to Gordon that he will help the restaurant when they allow him to change the menu. Meanwhile, Bill continues his tableside service, though he keeps making mistakes. I don't blame him, he should instead be at home resting, but his wife is too stingy to hire someone else. Ramsay then meets privately with Adele and Cheryl, who think Bill doesn't work that hard, and that the current menu is good enough.
Are you stupid?
I guess I am.
Top 3 worst answers in the history of the show. Despite Ramsay's criticism, Adele and Cheryl still don't see the problem with their business. To prove them wrong, Ramsay meets with the staff to let them hear the truth. Of course, Brian complains that he's not allowed to show off his true talents, although that's the least controversial complaint. Then, a waitress asks Adele why she mistreats the staff.
You're an excellent server, but you don't frickin' listen.
Everything that comes out of Adele's mouth is barbaric. Oh, and doesn't Adele look familiar? She reminds me of George Costanza's mom from Seinfeld. Anyway, after that tense conversation, Ramsay tells Brian and Bill that they are free to cook whatever they want for that day's specials. That's a massive relief for both of them, especially Bill, who prefers cooking to schlepping that meat cart around. Therefore, both create new, custom dishes that the staff likes, although Adele disagrees with serving meatloaf. Unsurprisingly, customers eagerly order the new specials. Yet Brian doesn't feel stressed this time. Instead, he manages to get the dishes out promptly, thanks to his appreciation for the new dishes. Thanks to his appreciation for having control over the menu. Unfortunately, other customers made the wrong decision to order dishes from the old menu and are unhappy with the result.
You don't want it. Okay. Bastard.
She might look like a sweet old lady, but don't be fooled. The mouth on her rivals Chef Ramsay for vulgarities thrown around.
I bet you've seen more in here than a muck spreader has in New Jersey for the last 100 years.
As orders from the old menu start to pour into the kitchen, it gets backed up. To make things worse, they confuse the ingredients in the dishes. At the end of the service, Ramsay notes that the new specials were a total hit, but Flamangos needs a more radical change to really succeed. What's that big change? No more tropical paradise in the middle of New Jersey. Ramsay orders the restaurant clear. Everyone has to bring out all of that tacky tropical decor. Despite Adele and Cheryl disagreeing with those changes, the staff throws everything out like their jobs don't depend on it. But that wasn't the last step in the plan, not at all. The old Flamangos must go down in flames, burned as an effigy and sacrificed to the restaurant gods. To the pits of hell, so goes that gross decor. While the employees see the fire as the best thing that ever happened, Adele bursts into tears. Her family, along with Gordon, offer her comfort. It's always hard to say goodbye to the past, but sometimes it's necessary to improve. As part of the transformation, Ramsay's team completely revamps Flamangos, starting with its name. Now, the place is called The Junction, a restaurant that seeks to bring families together through food. It's a heartwarming concept, but Adele doesn't like it. How can she not like it? The inside of her restaurant went through one of the biggest renovations I've ever seen on the show. The dining room is much more spacious when they remove the clutter, and boasts a simple yet elegant decor.
Adele, what do you think?
I don't like it.
Adele is so upset with the renovation that she starts crying again. Ramsay reminds her that her main concern should be what the customers want, not what she thinks. After Adele starts to calm down a little, Ramsay then presents the staff with a new and simplified menu. As usual, Ramsay reduces the total dishes on the menu to something more manageable. Once again, Adele has reservation.
I mean, this is very limited.
There's nothing more frustrating than trying to help someone who doesn't know how to receive help. Ramsay experiences that with Adele, whom he warns that if she doesn't accept the future, she should just close her business instead. Even though Adele didn't care for the new menu, the staff went ahead with the relaunch anyway. As customers start pouring into the restaurant, Adele becomes overwhelmed and complains that she wants to go home. The good news is that Bill, Cheryl, Brian, and the rest of the staff are committed to the new restaurant and are providing excellent service. Meanwhile, Adele continues to complain about the changes in front of some customers. Undermining your own restaurant and staff in front of the customers? How unprofessional. I mean, I told you she was miserable, didn't I? Since talking to her is pointless, Ramsay asked Bill for help to talk to some sense into his wife. And that's how Bill managed to make the most bitter and miserable owner of Kitchen Nightmares smile with nothing but his charisma. Not all heroes wear capes. In the end, the relaunch of The Junction, is a total success, and even Adele eventually got her act together and ended up doing an excellent job despite starting on the wrong foot. After which, Ramsay congratulates everyone, promising them he'll be back to see their progress, and when that time comes, Cheryl better not still be living at her parents' house. But did Adele adapt to the long-term changes? What happened to The Junction after the show? To no one's surprise, Adele returned to her old habits a few days after Gordon's visit. She also redecorated the restaurant to her liking, but at least she kept Ramsay's menu, and the customers continue to love the food. 2 months after filming the episode, the family made some interesting statements to the New Jersey Monthly. They have mixed feelings about the changes. They like the new name and most of the new menu. The decor, not so much. They quickly stowed the new blue and white chairs, which they, and many customers, they say, thought evoked a diner, in favor of sedate, dark wood models. As we saw in the episode, Adele wasn't entirely convinced with the changes and made her own renovations. After his visit in mid-2009, Gordon revisited the Junction in 2011 for the show's 4th season in a subsequent follow-up episode. The first person to greet him is Cheryl, who confesses that she's still single and still lives at her parents' house. But at least she says she has plans to move out. On the other hand, Adele looks much more cheerful. Overall, she is nicer to her staff. However, Brian has left the restaurant because he couldn't get along with the management. Despite that, Cheryl says that the total sales of the restaurant have doubled. The food tastes delicious, according to Chef Ramsay, who especially likes Bill's meatloaf. Pleased with the restaurant's progress, Ramsay gives the family a gift, an alligator puppet to replace their beloved Willie the alligator that perished in the fire. As Ramsay leaves the Junction for a second time, he seems optimistic about the restaurant's future, joking that the most pressing issue is to find 43-year-old Cheryl a husband. What happened to the Junction and the family after that? If we look at their online reviews, at least on Yelp, the Junction has just 7 reviews, totaling a 4-star rating. When we heard Gordon Ramsay had come to change the old Flamangos, we had to give the Junction a try. Afterward, my family and I overate since the food was that good. We left with overly full bellies. Went there strictly because of kitchen nightmares and expected a bad experience and bad food. I got the complete opposite. Ordered the fried pickles and meatloaf. Both were very good. Definitely wasn't your average meatloaf. At least most reviews are positive and praise the meatloaf. Definitely the highlight of the episode. However, there's a reason there are no more reviews of the Junction after 2011. The family closed the restaurant in April of that year. They did not give an official reason for that decision, but according to a Gazette review article, they had to close their business due to financial difficulties. Also, the location may not have been the best, considering the few amount of reviews they received. As of today, the former location of the Junction is occupied by The Rail at Reddington, a family restaurant that maintains the train theme and has 3.5 stars on Yelp based on 150 reviews. So what happened to the family? Did their daughter leave home? Well, judging by her LinkedIn profile, I guess Cheryl did get a home of her own. After her experience in the restaurant business, Cheryl became an interior designer for different companies in New Jersey. On her Facebook profile, we can see some of her work, and she looks pretty talented. On the other hand, Adele and Bill moved to Florida to retire. We know Adele is prone to boredom, so she joined Etsy to sell her homemade clothes. I don't know if it's real, as she currently has no items for sale, but the description sounds a lot like her. Adele hasn't posted anything on Facebook in a while, but Cheryl always shares photos with her. I'm a little concerned about not seeing any recent pictures of Bill, but there's no sign of an obituary. Looks like Madame Grumpy wasn't so grumpy after all. Jokes aside, remember it's a show, and people are portrayed more cruelly than they are. I only say this because I found a lot of horrible comments toward Adele, and no one deserves that. Let's just focus on the good, and that is that Bill finally is enjoying his retirement and Cheryl has moved out.